Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Agnès Giboreau. I am the Research Director of the Institut Bocus in France. I am very pleased to be with you today for this international conference on hospitality and culinary innovation. And I am very happy to contribute to the topic of healing powers. And more specifically, I would like to discuss with you and show you some information and some research results to improve the meal experience in healthcare institutions thanks to the principles. This will be my topic today. So I'm going to share the slides. So the question of healing powers is specifically important for people who have some troubles with health, and I will show you how we address this question in the research center. But as a preamble, I would like to share with you some information on who we are. First, let me remind you that the Institut Bocus is a private non-profit school in France. We have 1,000 students from 60 nationalities coming for bachelor degrees or master degrees in various courses, as you can see here. And we opened in 2008 the research center to also conduct and train students through research with partner universities delivering the PhD degrees. The research center team all together work on the societal challenge of tasty, healthy and sustainable diets for all people and in all contexts. And to do so, we have a multidisciplinary and international team having scientists, researchers and doctoral students, project leaders in culinary design or different food science expertise. And of course, we do work with the experts from the school, including different experts in culinary, pastry, bakery, sommelier. We also rely our research on a full spectrum platform with a smartphone application or to get data in the real life, but also some experimental facilities like a culinary space for domestic cooking and a living lab comprising laboratories for cooking and an experimental restaurant. We also have some cabins for individual tasks and a partnership with nutrition and the European Center for Nutrition and Health. We collect various data in the experimental restaurant, like the choices in a self-service line, but also some interview and questionnaires. We look at the consumed quantities, and also we could have some biological markers that are very important for the question of health, as we will see in my examples. So altogether, we have cutting-edge methodologies to better understand population, specifically vulnerable population like children or patients or elderly. And we use different types of questionnaires with our flow application, but also implicit methods, questionnaires, computerized behavioral tasks. And for the professionals, we work with our chefs and external chefs worldwide with interviews, but also creativity sessions in cooking, ideation, creation of concepts or prototype. And we do have a range of data coming from real life evaluation. And this is particularly important for vulnerable population when we cannot have them coming to the laboratory. We go to their place, we go to schools, we go to nursing homes, we go to hospitals, and then we study how we can contribute to their well-being, to their health, based on the knowledge of gastronomy and science. And this is what I'm going to show you, knowing that we study behaviors, perception, choice of consumers, of people at different scales, from the food service scale to the meal, individual perception, as well as nutrition and food and drinks characteristics. So how could we improve the meal experience and the health status in a healthcare institution thanks to the principle of gastronomy? You all know that undernutrition is very important, especially in geriatric institutions where the average age is about 85 years old, where we have a majority of women, and the prevalence of malnutrition in those institutions could go up to 40%. This is not easy to tackle because there are people in geriatric institutions go through various changes, physiological, of course, due to age, due to disease, but also psychological and sociological, because the reference frame are different from when you are at home, when you are in an institution, everything changed. And sometimes they also complain of the food, and for various reasons that their intake is not appropriate, and it leads to undernutrition and frailty. So it is very important to take the dietary composition of the food to be adapted to this vulnerable population. And what we suggest to do is to look into the gastronomy principles to identify strategies to increase and maintain elderly or patients' interest in food, to look for means to increase the hedonic value, the pleasure of eating. And this, in our experience, is a very good factor to help vulnerable patients, people, to increase their food intake, because they would take more pleasure, enjoyment eating it. So what are the means coming from the understanding of the food service system based on gastronomy principles? First, we change the focus of the question. When we look, initially we consider that we would like to improve food intake and improve the dietary composition of the food. It's centered on the composition and on the chemical and physical composition of the food. So we enrich the food and we consider that the patients will gain weight and get better. But we observe that it does not occur systematically, because people do not eat the food that is served. So changing the focus and questioning how a food service system operates allows us to say we have to consider the meal, and with the meal question, it means what comes from the kitchen, what to the plate of the guest, of the eater, but also the environment. The service is very important, as well as the environment of the dining room. And we have the table art experts. And to operate a restaurant, we need to take into account all the chain. So how does it help us for improving the meal experience in vulnerable population? We consider three main parameters. three main factors and levels of actions. The food, of course, dish labeling, dish presentation, portion size, sensory variety, sensory enhancement. The beliefs, the individual characteristics with his or her own beliefs, habits, sensitivity, hunger, mood, and the context with the space, the room, the physical environment, the information, the discourse, the way the food is presented, and the social interaction. So I will illustrate various research works that we conducted in health institutions to improve the meal experience through those three sectors. First, the environment, and this is a very central part in the marketing of a restaurant. You design the way your restaurant operates with by looking with the right furniture, the right design, plates, and so on. So we did this in a nursing home group. So we tested 3 types of table dressings, as you see on this picture, and we measure how it influences the willingness to eat of the residents, of the elderly people in the nursing homes. And you can see that 2 ambiances, 2 designs were chosen by the participants to be in accordance to what they expect. The last one on the bottom, the cozy, was found too dark and sad, and people were telling us that they need some freshness, some happiness brought by colors, by flowers, to improve the environment of eating. We also work on the service. In a restaurant, you have different types of service, and in nursing homes or here at the hospital, we were also interested in how we can help patients to eat and fight undernutrition. So here we conducted a study working on how nurses interact with their patients. So we used a video recording of various people, and we analyzed them through the knowledge of gastronomy service. And you can see here in the middle scale, in the middle picture, that, for instance, the cutlery were not prepared to be easy to use. The dish was still covered with the plastic film, and so the patients, before starting eating, has to rearrange the tray and the food before eating. So it costs some effort, and someone who is not very much inclined to eat might just stop and maybe can be discouraged to eat. And this picture on the left illustrates the social interactions between the nurse and the patient. And in the movie here, which is in France, so I will not display it, but the nurse has been trained with waiters from the Institut Bocus, and the way she presented the food was starting by saying hello with the name of the lady and presenting her the menu, asking her if she likes the lentils dish, and making it more socialized and raising the interest of the patients to eat what is brought. So the key factors of the service in health institution are related to the tray arrangement, to the staff, and also a strong support for the management of the institution to tell the staff to pay attention to individuals and their easiness to eat and interest in the offer. We also work on social interactions between the guests at the tables. So here it was some sociological survey where we observe how people behave in nursing homes, and if we can make some links with the way they eat and how much they eat. So we also showed with some biological criteria that the people who have little, I start again. We observed 40 residents for several meals, and altogether it was about 1,000 interactions that we recorded and coded. And we showed that we have some people that have very little interactions here, and others who have many social interactions at the table. We also coded the content, the meaning of the interactions. Some were negative and some were positive. And we also had here below the intake, the food intake at lunch. So you can see that the people who have many interactions consumed more food, such as the one who had more positive interactions. So this is not a causal link. We don't believe engaging people to have more interactions would mean higher food intake, but we have to pay attention that people who do have a good food intake are also the ones who have good social interactions. So psychological and social interactions are very important, and we have to pay attention to this when studying food intake and fighting undernutrition. I move now to the second pillar of the meal experience, is to take into account the personal variability between individuals. So here it's also a study conducted in a nursing home, and we would like to show here that we presented labels of different French dishes, and we observed how people like the dishes, and you can see some grouping of products that are liked, some that are not so much liked, and some that are unknown. So here you have some, for instance, lamb curry, Indian type lamb curry. This type of dish is unknown in the 90-year-old population in France, and not knowing a dish prevents a consumer to eat it, because there are a lot of breaks into consuming an unknown dish. So the cultural variability between subjects is very important, and when you create a menu, you need to explore the type of consumers you are going to serve, and then take their knowledge of the food into consideration to create attractive menu. Another parameter of individual differences is the physiological variability. Here it's a study we conduct with cancer patients, and it's also a very big program we have here at the Institute. This work was conducted with lung cancer patients, and together with our colleagues in Neuroscience Institute, we worked on food perception, and you can see a great difference here between patients and controls, where the patients reject food odors, and there is no difference with non-food odors. It means here that we have to take into account specificities also in terms of sensitivity. Another example, another main category of factors that I would like to address today about transferring gastronomic principles to accompany undernutrition and meal and health institution is, of course, the food itself, which is central in this question. So we worked here with the Rabin Hospital in Tel Aviv on the dish dressing. So the chef from this hospital came to France and spent a few days with one chef of the team to design the dish in a more attractive way, as you can see on this example. So we had 11 recipes that were worked in a more aesthetic sense, with a good balance. And you can see here in the graph that we had 100 patients, one experimental group and one control group. And you can see here that the experimental group in red is the one who had the designed plates. They liked very much more the food, and they also consumed it more. As you can see here, there's no food remain, or only 25% remain. So working on the design of the plate is one way to give the patients or the person more willingness to eat the food and to enjoy the food. We also worked on the sensory variety. You're working here on a 3-color dish, allows to increase the quantity of the vegetable and on the meat consumed in the nursing homes. So bringing some variety is also an attractive factors for meal consumption in the elderly. Here we worked on the flavor enhancement. So this was an experiment in nursing homes. So you can see these are small appetizers, not very attractive in the shape and the color, but we wanted to check that everything is neutral. And we had one reference recipe and one enriched recipe, where the enriched recipe had, it's an eggplant puree on a small soft bread, and the eggplant puree is enriched with garlic, pepper, olive oil, so the taste, the experience is in mouth is much stronger. And you can see here that the food intake is greater for all groups of subjects. Here we have different levels of mini mental scale, meaning the cognitive impairment. The high scale are those with no cognitive trouble, and here we have those with cognitive trouble. So we demonstrated here that even with patients with Alzheimer's disease, for instance, they would enjoy more the food that have more taste. And this is what we showed here in the correlating the food liking and the food intake for both low and high and medium troubles. And this is particularly interesting because at that time we didn't know if someone with an Alzheimer's disease would also be influenced by the taste of the food, and we showed they are. So to conclude, I would gather here the three categories of factors that professionals can work to improve the pleasure to eat and the well-being. So the central one is the food itself, and the experts from the kitchen are very important. Chefs can work with health institutions to improve the food, the taste, the design. It's very important. We can work here with restaurant experts from the dining room and the service. I showed you some example where the environment and also the relation between the staff and the person has an influence on the meal enjoyment. And what also to study is to really adjust the food and the context of eating to the specificity of the eaters. So of course, when you are in an institution, you have to take the group into consideration. So you can work on the generational effect or the health status, and the cultural. In France, we have different menus in nursing homes in the northern part of France because their culinary habits are different, and whenever we can also adjust and personalize the food, the recipe for each individual, bringing a range of seasonings, for instance, where each person can add mustard or tomato or soya sauce, some additional ingredients that could also personalize the food. So these are the directions that I wanted to share with you. And I would like to thank all my colleagues and thank you for your listening. And I would just like to mention again that you are welcome to contact me if you have any question. And I would also be pleased to send some scientific papers that we wrote describing all these experiences. So welcome to the Institut Bocus, and have a great conference all together in Taiwan. Bye bye.
Hello everyone, welcome. Today my presentation is how food has been the key factor to healthy lifestyles as the best medicine in Korea. My presentation today will follow this table of contents, where I will begin with a brief background and current global trend. As the world is becoming closer and closer together, cultures across the world are being shared and studied. Particularly food culture as a key element, the world is now sharing the information about various foods from all corners of the world. Based on the information superhighway across the world, we're now studying various foods from diverse cultures and healthy lifestyles. Renowned healthy diets, such as the Mediterranean and Nordic diets, have been studied and promoted globally. Studies on the French diet have reported an interesting epidemiological observation called French paradox, referencing that French people have low incidence of cardiovascular disease, or CVD, despite high consumption of saturated fats in their diet. It is presumed that the French lifestyle and consumption of red wine lowers their incidence rates of CVD. For health benefits of Korean food, research has suggested that the health benefits of Korean food are due to diverse ingredients and cooking methods used in Korean cuisine. The average life expectancy in Korea is more than 80 years, despite the popularity of high salt dishes such as guk, tang, and kimchi. Excessive salt consumption is a risk factor for CVD. This phenomenon has been referred to as a Korean paradox. And some researchers have claimed that the paradox can be explained by the regular consumption of vegetables and the types of fermented ingredients, starting from salt used in Korean cuisine, which reduces the risk of CVD. And next, let us discuss briefly of geography and characteristics of Republic of Korea or South Korea. South Korea is situated in far East Asia, and as a peninsula, it's situated right in between China and Japan. As a peninsula, it serves as a bridge between China and Japan, transferring China's advanced culture to Japan. With oceans all three sides as a peninsula, greatly influenced the formation of unique food culture. Incorporated inland agronomy, northern foods, and southern culinary culture resulted in unique foods fundamentally distinct from Chinese or Japanese food cultures. Let us look at Korean food and health next. Since ancient times, the Korean people have maintained a belief that food and medicine have the same origin and hence perform the same function. Following the adage that food is the best medicine, Koreans believe that health and illness alike come from the food they consume and how they eat it. And this idea has played a crucial role in the development of traditional Korean medicine, whose basic principle is that we should use medicine only after food has failed. Since 300 BC, Korea has been influenced by China, particularly in regard to its medicinal aspects. Accordingly, health is a state of balance in which food choice is a key, and a person's body is healthy only when yin-yang and 5 elements are in balance. Yin-yang are energetic qualities that created the 5 elements in nature: wood, fire, soil, metal, and water, with matching colors: green, red, yellow, white, and black, that shape everything in the universe, including our health. 5 elements in nature is presented here in a diagram. As you can see, they're all interconnected, interrelated, where fire represents a heart, earth represents a kidney, metal represents lungs, water represents kidneys, and wood for liver. For this reason, a traditional Korean table includes dishes or garnishes of 5 colors, most of which are low in calories and full of vegetables. An ancient philosophy that preempts today's international campaign to encourage the daily consumption of 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. Here is a picture of traditional Korean table. As you can see, the 5 elements of nature is highlighted at the center of the table. And you can also notice that all 5 colors are presented in other side dishes. Next, we will look at fermentation of Korean food. One of the key words to understanding traditional Korean food is fermentation. For our purpose, fermentation is a metabolic process that helps food to mature so that it has improved taste and nutritional properties and can be stored for a longer period. The Korean foods that best represents the tradition of fermentation developed in Korea include doenjang, which is soybean paste, 간장, which is a soy sauce, and gochujang, which is chili paste, and 젓갈, salted seafood, and kimchi, whose fermentation can take anywhere from several months to several years. The degree of fermentation is a key factor in taste and flavor of food cooked at home and in restaurants. Two of the most important items of traditional fermented food in Korea are doenjang and 간장. To make them, it is necessary to soak soybeans in water and boil them until fully cooked. Then soybeans are pounded and formed into brick-shaped lumps, tied with rice straw and left to dry and ferment to make meju. Here is a photo of freshly made meju tied with rice straws. Here's a photo of fermented meju. I'd like to point out the key factor here is the use of rice straws. With their compounds rightfully suited for fermentation, it is one of the key techniques that Koreans use to ferment meju. Once fully fermented, meju are placed in salted water in a large Korean earthenware pot called ongi, along with dried red chili and heated charcoal, which help remove impurities and odor during the fermentation process. Here is a photo of the result. Koreans have been known for using ongi since ancient times, as noted in Chinese history records, such as records of whey, and scientifically proven for assisting the fermentation processes with proper porosity and permeability needs to use in order to produce an optimally ripened quality and fermented foodstuff. Particularly, ongi has been known for these following 4 characteristics. 1, breathability. 2, stability. 3, sustainability for fermentation. And 4, porosity. One of the most important characteristics of using ongi for fermenting food is the 4th quality, porosity. While burning in a high temperature, ongi master glazes its surface that plays a key role in giving a waterproof surface and preventing leaks. With many particles of sand included in the body of clay acting as passages for air while staying waterproof, this is one of the most critical reasons to use ongi in making Korean fermented foods. After fully fermented, about 2-3 months, contents should then be divided into 2 components, separated into solids and the other into liquid. One of which, the former, needs to be brewed for over 5 more months for full flavor and taste as doenjang. The latter, which is the liquid part, It should be brewed for 3 more months or longer to develop full flavor taste kanjang. Like wine, similar to wine, kanjang tends to have richer flavor and taste when brewed for a long period. Occasionally, one can find Korean dishes using kanjang that is fermented for more than 100 years. Next is gochujang, or chili paste. Gochujang is a traditional Korean condiment made by fermenting a mixture of soybean malt, salt, and chili pepper powder with a blend of powdered rice, barley, flour, and malted barley. Gochujang has long been one of the most important traditional condiments among Korean people, whose palates have evolved towards a preference for hot and spicy food since they were introduced to Chile several hundred years ago. Next is 젓갈, salted seafood, which is almost an indispensable ingredient for kimchi making and a very popular condiment used to enhance taste of food. 젓갈, or salted seafood, is made by mixing one of a variety of seafood, such as anchovy, shrimp, oyster, or clam, with salt or with other condiments in addition to salt, and fermenting it in ongi in a cool place. They say that a longer period of fermentation makes it tastier. The tradition of making fermented fish sauce yielded several special delicacies mixed with rice and other condiments. And surely, Korean traditional culinary cannot be discussed with kimchi. Now beginning to gain a worldwide reputation as representative food of Korea, kimchi has been praised for its anti-carcinogenic properties and nutritional value, as well as numerous variations that create excitingly diverse flavors and tastes. Most common type of kimchi is made by mixing salted kimchi, kimchi cabbage, kimchi paste made of chili powder, garlic, spring onions, Korean radish, ginger, fish sauce, and other ingredients like fresh seafood. Kimchi is typically eaten after fermenting it for several days, although some prefer called 묵은지, which is fully fermented for typically more than 2, 3, or more years. There are more than 300 different types of kimchi in Korea, depending on their ingredients, seasonings, and methods. In 2001, the Codex Alimentarius Commission listed Korean kimchi in internationally recognized standards, and in 2012, officially recognized the term kimchi cabbage, which had been previously been referred to as Chinese cabbage. In 2006, U.S. Health magazine selected kimchi as one of the 5 healthiest foods on earth. We'd like to introduce a few Korean traditional dishes that are known to be healthy. Bibimbap, which literally in Korean means mixed rice, is essentially a dish of cooked rice served after mixing it with a assortment of fresh and seasoned vegetables, fried egg, minced beef, and other ingredients before cooking. This dish is closely related with Jeonju, a UNESCO-designated city of gastronomy, where food-related festivals, including Bibimbap Festival, are held every autumn, attracting everyone around the world and Korea. Bibimbap has recently begun to attract worldwide attention for its nutritional balance, which is said to help keep those who eat it free from geriatric diseases. and is now generally cited as one of the three most representative dishes of Korea cuisine, along with kimchi and bulgogi. Bulgogi, which literally means the fire meat in Korean, refers to a traditional Korean dish made by grilling beef, sometimes rarely pork, after shredding or slicing it and marinating it in sweet soy sauce mixed a great variety of condiments. It is one of the rare meat dishes to have developed in Korea, where people were generally more accustomed to eating vegetable dishes, and has won many enthusiasts outside the country. These days, bulgogi has been adopted by fast food restaurants in Korea, where you can easily find the emergence of bulgogi hamburgers and pizzas. Here's a list of references used for this presentation, in case you are interested in further studying. And I hope you enjoy a healthy Korean diet, and thank you.